The following program is being brought to you on the Seventh Wave Network. For more information about our network and to check our additional show hosts and topics of interest, please visit seventhwavenetwork.com. The Voice America Talk Radio Network is the worldwide leader in live Internet talk radio. Visit voiceamerica.com. The views and ideas expressed on the following program are strictly those of the host or guests and do not necessarily reflect the views and ideas held by the Voice America Talk Radio Network, its staff, and management. Welcome. You've entered the realm of 1111 Talk Radio. Your host is Simran Singh. It's time to discover your own language with the universe. Learn to empower yourself, broaden your mind, open your heart, and discover who you are. Now, here's your host, Simran Singh.
Welcome. Sometimes we look for our destiny and sometimes it finds us. But most often we will experience stress unless we are living out our purpose and our destiny. Today I have with us Nick Good, Creative Director and Principal of Success Ultra Now. He is an ordained minister and has 2 doctorates, one in metaphysics and the other in divinity. He is the author of such books as Soul Surfing, Adventures in Destiny, The Rainbow Whispers, and Amazing Grace. Nick, I'd like to welcome you to 1111 Talk Radio.
Thank you so much. It's lovely to be here.
You have traveled the world inspiring people, motivating people. You've been a personal trainer. You're a motivator. You teach people about raw food, how to live healthily. And you've had your own battle with illness and how to overcome certain things. And I'd like to first let people really get to know you. So tell me a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yes, that would be a pleasure. Well, I was born and raised in Lincolnshire, England, the Shire of Lincoln, which is about 120 miles north of London, in the countryside, little farming community, a tiny little hamlet. It's a very, how can I say this, it's a very backward kind of a place. People are very stuck in their traditional ways, and there's not much vision apart from what, you can sort of see and touch going on up there. And I grew up in that community, and it was a pretty dysfunctional family environment, emotionally and psychologically and physically, very violent. Our culture up there is there's a lot of violence in the homes and in the schools and what have you, and so I grew up in that, and I was aware at a very young age, of an incredible sensitivity and a delight in nature, and so I used to spend a lot of time alone in nature, sitting on the banks of the river and climbing the trees and with the dogs and in the fields and stuff. And really, I guess in my loneliness and the difficulties that I was experiencing as a child, that developed sensitivity and where I was able to generate a sort of an unconscious connection with life through nature. And now, sort of 35, 40 years later from those times, I can really appreciate those experiences that I had in my childhood, and they gave me a tremendous gift, even though that gift was dressed up in a wrapping paper that I didn't really enjoy unwrapping.
Well, and so often we have to experience those kinds of things to step out and become powerful people as you are being, in motivating others, in teaching others, and leading others into finding their own gifts and experiences from this life. Who were the people that helped you. You said it was a very backward area. So how did you become acquainted with some of the concepts that you write about in your blog, that you write about in your books?
Well, it was really, moving away from that environment where all of that happened. I feel that, the sort of the times that we're living in, where a lot of people are experiencing very difficult times in the world now, very challenging times, and I feel that, whenever the sort of challenges really present themselves in our experience, there's a real choice that you have in terms of how you deal with that. If you're able to actually, receive the gift and appreciate the gift of the opportunities that are presenting themselves in those moments, even though they're, like I said, wrapped up in an appearance that you probably wouldn't choose. It's too painful or whatever. So for me, it was kind of happening, unconsciously. It was just happening through a life experience, and there weren't really any inspirations around. There weren't really any role models that were really inspiring me in those times until I was about 17 years old, and I was in my final year at school there. And I had to retake a whole bunch of exams that I'd failed the first time round, and to fill in some time for class, I took a class in contemporary English literature, and what we did was we studied all of the great 20th century authors, guys like Hemingway and F. Scott Fitzgerald and Dylan Thomas and D.H. Lawrence and James Joyce and brilliant poets and all from the 20th century. And we didn't actually read their books. We read some of their short stories, but we studied their lives. And so what happened at that time in my life, suddenly, talk about a bolt out of the blue in this, extremely challenging and very a basic, mundane culture, there was this lightning bolt of consciousness coming in, embodied by the lifestyles of these incredible authors, and it just captured my imagination, and I just became aware of how you could live life, what adventure you could have, and everything that these guys were doing was just like phenomenal adventure and the most radical possibilities.
They had a sense of possibility, and you studied their lives, but even if someone were to read a lot of those different authors' writings, there are subtle elements in there that really speak a lot of the law of attraction or many of the concepts, like the unified field. They don't use those words, but they kind of lean towards those thoughts and concepts. So you were picking up on those things.
Well, I think the really big lesson, the big message that I got from those guys was that if you want to be if you want to achieve anything in your life, especially writing, because that's what I wanted to do. As soon as I read that, all I wanted to do was to be a great author. That's what I wanted to do, and I realized that you had to go out and live a great life. And so the notion of the law of attraction, like now, again with hindsight and the way I consult and the success formulas that I share and the success that I enjoy personally, it's coming from just the magnetics of my being. It's just a natural magnetism, and this notion of greatness, a great writer lives a great life. All you're doing is just telling the story of your own experience, basically. Even though you might dress it up in fiction, it's still your experience, and it vibrates, it resonates with that power.
And Amazing Grace, one of your books that you've written, it speaks a lot to this about how there's a success that can exude from each of us regardless of those outer circumstances.
Absolutely.
And that's how you also talk about, stepping into that unified field of infinite possibility and how partly your own story through that book as well. Yeah.
Amazing Grace, I co-authored that with my dear friend David Wolf, who's the raw food, sort of the raw food guru in the world. And Dave and I, he actually hired me as his personal trainer. And we had some very specific goals that we wanted to hit, and we hit those goals so easily, so efficiently, so gracefully that we went on to produce Amazing Grace together. And that book, it's one of the best balanced pieces of literature in the world that I'm aware of right now, in terms of incorporating success, technology, nutritional protocols, health protocols, with the deepest spiritual, most profound spiritual perspectives, and galvanizing them into a story that captures the imagination and presents a perspective on what's really going on in the world right now, and really how to thrive in this seemingly these seemingly turbulent times. And so I'm very pleased with that book.
And that's something that so many people are really, really challenged by, whether it's economically, whether it's just the fear of seeing what's going on in the world, or what lives their children may live based on different political decisions that are made. A lot of people are sitting in that place of, how do I sustain myself? How do I continue forward and live a powerful life and not get locked into that grip of fear?
Yeah. Yeah, well, these are massively, these are huge questions, and I really specialize in this, especially the fear factor. I mean, I was paralyzed with fear from a very, very, very young age, and I realized very early on that fear was a real inhibitor of potential, and I chose to, express as an athlete early on in my youth, and I excelled in a variety of different sports, and the only reason I got to the level that I did was because I really, really, really took that fear on and had a really good look at it. And as my understanding evolved, and I was able to enjoy the sort of the harvest of my experience, the fruits of my experience, and really integrate that. What we realized was that that fear is basically an essential component of what we call the ego. It's a natural byproduct. Fear is a natural byproduct of being dissociated from who you truly are inside of yourself. And this notion of going out and living a great life and developing the magnetic, natural magnetism that automatically generates success and attracts grace and wonder into your life. It's born out of being who you are.
And that's what Nick Good is all about, helping people reach who they are through SuccessUltraNow.com. For over 20 years, he has been traveling the world working as a personal trainer, masseur, and motivator with some of the most successful individuals on the planet. Join me in a few minutes, and we'll speak a little bit more with Nick Good.
Your online community for positive change. Seventh Wave Network.
We all want peace. We all desire a more meaningful life. We work hard to achieve these things, but at what avail? The key is authentic living with Andrea Matthews. Andrea will interview some of the great spiritual experts of today and will provide wisdom to help you raise your consciousness to the level of your own I am. Your authenticity can give you miraculous gifts, but you have to know how to get there. Listen for Authentic Living with Andrea Matthews, Heard live every Wednesday afternoon at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Pacific Time on the Seventh Wave Network.
Have you seen 1111? Do you wonder why certain numbers keep showing up in your life? 11, 111, 22, 33, 444. People all over the world are seeing 1111 and learning the language of universal communication. Subscribe to 1111 Magazine today. www.1111mag.com. 1111 Magazine is a bi-monthly print publication that offers a rich, multi-sensory experience. As you engage with experts and topics of consciousness, become enlightened, empowered, and energized, so you live a passionate and authentic life of conscious choices. 1111 Magazine, a daily staple for lifting the mindset, discovering the heart, and stepping into conscious living. 1111 Magazine. Order now at www.1111mag.com. 1111mag.com.
Mom?
Dad?
How long should I wait for you? Mom?
If I'm at soccer practice.
What if something happens? Will you come get me?
There's no reason not to have a plan in case of a terrorist attack.
Mom, if you're not home, should we go to the neighbor's house?
And some extremely good reasons why you should.
Can you tell me?
Everybody should have a plan. Take 5 minutes to talk about where you'll meet and how you'll get in touch with each other in an emergency. For other things you can do to be prepared, visit www.ready.gov. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security and the Ad Council.
The new home for visionary positive change. Seventh Wave Network.
You are listening to 1111 Talk Radio. If you'd like to join today's discussion, please call in toll-free at 1-866-472-5795. Again, 1-866-472-5795. You may also send an email to info@believesc.com. Now back to 1111 Talk Radio with Simran Singh.
Nick Good overcame a difficult childhood to accomplish many things all over the world. Diagnosed with cancer in the 90s, Nick saw his father and younger brother both die of the same disease. His combination of zest for life, deep wisdom, and experience qualify him as an authentic guide on the path of holistic wellness. He is the author of books such as The Beautiful Mystery and Magic of Love, The Rainbow Whispers, Cancer, The Natural Answer, and Amazing Grace, and all of these can be found on his website, successultranow.com. Nick, welcome back, and we were speaking a bit about Amazing Grace, one of your books, and how that supports people in moving through the challenges of our time and in overcoming that fear. And you talked about overcoming your own fear. What was the turning point that made you decide, I'm going to face this fear, I have to surmount what's blocking me?
Wow, that's a big question. Well, I think really there's been different sort of milestones in my journey, and I feel that, you know, it's an eternal journey that's continuing to unfold, and, you know, there's more and more milestones coming up. I say it's just like after and a nice story that goes with it. I think one of the really the most significant catalyst in there was really being in love. Being madly in love when I was living in France. Met a French girl there, and we just were so madly in love with each other. And I was living a very wild life in those days in the woods in France, and the combination of being in love with her and the nature, the power of nature, and my open-heartedness and open-mindedness. And at the same time peaking as an athlete physically. I was in my late 20s then. What I was capable of and the challenges that I met and the fear that I overcame during that chapter, that really was a very, very, very significant time in my life when I really proved to myself that, wow, there really are no limits to what we can achieve if we really believe in this incredible power within us, and nurture relationships with that power. And that was definitely a massive turning point in my life during that epoch.
And in stepping into that place of power for yourself, did that let you understand more that the further I step, the bigger or broader I can be?
Yeah, I think what it did for me, really, that's one of those books that you quoted on there, The Beautiful Mystery and Magic of Love, and which is bound in another format right now. It's called Soul Consciousness: The Love Story. That was about 15 years ago when I first put that together, and there's a kind of a brand new version with a different title and a different content added in there. The power of love, the experience of love. This is what I'm really into sharing with people. Is the experience. People need an experience of grace. They need an experience of divine love. They need an experience of something that the normal waking state, living in the normal society and functioning in tune with the status quo, essentially denies us that almost all day, every day for most people. And so I'm really into giving people an experience of that. And I think that's what we're all yearning for, and it's definitely something that I never experienced before in my life. And so suddenly I was being flooded with this experience, and what it gave me was an appreciation again of this sensitivity that I developed when I was a child to really go in and nurture this sensitivity and this tenderness. A lot of the brokenheartedness that many people experience and that cover and bury within themselves, especially a lot of men, putting on a front and suppressing and repressing and burying their emotions and their sensitivity, prevent them from using that tenderness and from meeting life in that very sensitive way, which really is the warrior's way. It is the warrior, the highest octave of the archetype, living the archetype of the warrior, the spiritual warrior, is, with that wounded heart, the bleeding heart of Jesus. And so when we walk in that way, when our heart is winged with that degree of love, then you really feel who you are and what life is and how you're supposed to be feeling as you move through the world. And so that's really the greatest thing that came out of those times for me.
And I think that's one of the issues that a lot of people have. They may think they're feeling, but there are many out there that are just walking very numb. Yeah,
that's right. It's extremely challenging. There's no doubt about it. And we're in times now where increasingly we're seeing the sort of numbing the things that people use to numb themselves are being dissolved. Structures are breaking down, institutions are breaking down. Economic society is reforming, and people are really having to reevaluate their lives and having to get in touch with tremendously powerful feelings that they might have been suppressing and repressing since they were a very young child. And I've never suppressed and repressed anything since I was a young man. Since I realized, wow, this is letting these emotions flow, being spontaneous with emotion and honest with that, and living with sensitivity and tenderness is actually a strength and a power. So I've really done my best not to build up the layers. I'm still dissolving layers, and I think a lot of people are going to be moving through like a crash course on that over the next few months and years in this modern society, and most of us, don't have the skill sets to deal with that. So I specialize in, really gifting individuals those skill sets in a very swift way. And it's a fascinating subject. When you get into, this notion of, fear is a natural byproduct of being identified with who you are not, functioning through this ego persona that is, basically just a pattern. It's a discordant pattern that exists within the psyche and sort of keeps the spirit in a prison of conformity, and that when you become sensitive enough and also skilled enough, you have to have the ability to go within. You have to have the ability to focus. You have to have the ability to relax. These things don't come as a free gift in this unnatural world that we're living in, this unnatural modern society.
It has to be a really conscious effort. With your background
Absolutely.
in metaphysics and in divinity, with everything that is going on in the world, and all of it outpicturing, because that's basically what's going on inside of us, is perhaps
Isn't that fascinating?
all of the challenges that are occurring for the purpose of helping us as individuals open our hearts because they've been closed?
Yeah, it's so fascinating. It's such an awe-inspiring experience we're sharing here. And there's a beautiful. Did you ever read The Prophet by Khalil Gibran?
Yes.
Isn't that a beautiful? You remember when Almira, the high priestess, is asking him about pain, and he's basically saying that could you but keep your heart in wonder at the daily miracles of your life, your pain would seem no less wondrous than your joy. And
yes.
So many of us are hypnotized by the appearance of this material world, which is superimposed, upon this, this infinite, eternal, unified field, whatever you want to call it. But we're hypnotized by this mundane apparition, and we're not really living in the wonder of life. But when you realize that, wow, everything that I'm seeing, everything that I'm experiencing is an externalization of my own inner being, of my spirit flowing through a bunch of recordings and patterns that are stuck in my own mind, in my own psyche, and all of this external world is feeding back for me to learn something from. And if I'm looking at discord and toxicity and greed and violence and all of these things that we don't like in the modern material world and becoming more and more and more and more prevalent in our faces, it's a reflection of what I have stored within me in my own subconscious and unconscious. And just that consideration on its own is just so mind-blowing, that. And that's really the perspective that we have to come to grips with. That's the first, really baby step in the right direction.
And taking the right direction is what Nick Good assists people in doing. Through his website, successultranow.com, you can reach Nick Good and also find out about many of his books. It's time to face what's going on in the world and recognize that as mirror images to what's going on inside of us. Perhaps the degree of pain that we allow ourselves to see is the degree that we need to open our hearts. Join us back in a few minutes and we'll talk a little bit more with Nick Good.
Be extraordinary. Seventh Wave
Thank
Network.
Love it.
Have you seen 1111? Do you wonder why certain numbers keep showing up in your life? 11, 111, 22, 33, 444. People all over the world are seeing 1111 and learning the language of universal communication. Subscribe to 1111 Magazine today. www.1111mag.com. 1111 Magazine is a bi-monthly print publication that offers a rich, multi-sensory experience. As you engage with experts and topics of consciousness, become enlightened, empowered, and energized, so you live a passionate and authentic life of conscious choices. 1111 Magazine, a daily staple for lifting the mindset, discovering the heart, and stepping into conscious living. 1111 Magazine. Order now at www.1111mag.com. 1111mag.com.
Are you looking for life's balance? Look no further than Seventh Wave Network. We're bringing you Life's Balance with Shaman M. Let Melody McBride take you on a unique listening experience. You'll explore the world of alternative health. Learn about the many facets of healing. Preventative lifestyles from children to seniors will be discussed on the show. Listen for Life's Balance with Shaman M. Broadcast live every Monday at 11 a.m. Pacific Time and 2 p.m. Eastern Time on Seventh Wave Network. It's the healthy side of life. Let peace and balance be yours.
The results indicate your child has neuroblastoma. There's evidence of metastasis. We need to schedule a bone We'll need to perform a surgical biopsy. MIBG scan.
After you hear your child has cancer, chances are you don't hear anything else. CureSearch.org connects you to the most comprehensive research and advice on childhood cancer, and to other families who know exactly what you're going through. CureSearch.org. You're not as alone as you feel. Brought to you by CureSearch and the Ad Council.
Listening on a higher dimension. Seventh Wave Network.
You are listening to 1111 Talk Radio. If you'd like to join today's discussion, please call in toll-free at 1-866-472-5795. Again, 1-866-472-5795. You may also send an email to info@believesc.com. Now back to 1111 Talk Radio with Simran Singh.
Nick Good, Creative Director and Principal of Success Ultra Now, is with me on 1111 Talk Radio. And there's a short paragraph that I'll read to you from his Amazing Grace book. You are the heir to all the ages in the foremost ranks of all time. Every one of your ancestors still lives in you right now. All their aspirations, hopes, and desires are in you. You are the quintessential product of their dreams, which are now your dreams. They prepared you for living as a real-life character in the greatest love story ever told. I think that is just a beautiful paragraph.
Thank you. I think it is too.
And that's really what we're here to live out our own stories. And you also tell us that we each have a specific purpose in life, and if we don't tap into that purpose, that there's this gnawing stress that just eats away at us, and that is part of the reason that we end up with human disease. Talk a little bit more about that, Nick.
Well, it is a love story, you know. It's like, it's so moving now, just the emotion I'm feeling through my body. You know, it is a love story. The love, the self-love that we need to generate, the love for God within us, whatever we call that source point, where we really, really source our life from within us. Love for creation, love for nature, love for each other, love for everything. You know, it is a love story, and it doesn't work without love. It's a hideous experience without love. And this, what I honestly, you know, experience and believe from someone who grew up in a terribly emotionally dysfunctional environment. I was 22 years old before I saw an adult couple touching each other with any affection. I was 22 years old. I remember the day very, very clearly.
Wow.
Yeah, 22 years old. Never saw it. I saw it on TV, but I thought that was, you know, like some sort of, you know, just something that, you know, in fantasy land. But all my family, my extended family, my friends and school friends and their parents and whatnot, you know, there just wasn't that. It wasn't going on. So there was a, you know, a void there in terms of this emotional nourishment, this tenderness. And so discovering that, in my late 20s, and then being opened up so much by it that I discovered a greater love, a deeper love, the love of life, the love of God, and falling in love with that, and having a real experience in terms of transformation of my own consciousness, of who I was, into someone completely different, but with a memory of who I had been. That transformation, that really communicated something to me.
What's powerful about that, Nick, is when I think about men in general. Women, we are emotional creatures anyway, so at some point we have our breakdowns and our breakthroughs, but there's so many men out there that appear as if they don't get that emotional nourishment that you're talking about, that appear as if they've been hardened or taught a way to keep a distance from their heart. What about those people? How do they tap into what you so obviously are sharing?
Well, it's an individual thing, and what we have to appreciate is that life's got us all, and life is going to do it for you. You're going to be broken down. You're going to be, the shell around your heart is going to be cracked and broken because it has to go. It's going to go. And it's going to happen sooner or later. It's going to happen sooner or later. This is an eternal experience we're having here. And you can delay that experience for as long as you like. But the good news is that you can also have that experience in an instant. And all you have to do is really surrender in your own inner being to that experience, because the love is there all the time. And I know as well as I do that all these guys that are walking around, there isn't such a thing as a hard man. There is such a thing as a very wounded man with a very tough armor on, wearing a very tough armor. But there's no such thing as a hard man. They just don't exist. I've boxed all my life. I've been in the boxing ring with some of the toughest guys in the world. And I played rugby, a ferociously violent game, to a very high standard for many years. And I've been in some very dark places with some very tough guys. And I know. A friend of mine, Dan Nolan Ministries. He's a preacher that goes around the world, facilitating miraculous healings, and he does it all in the name of Jesus. He was, an extremely violent bikie gang leader when he had his, illumination and great transformation. And he says that all the time. He has guys, really big, tough, rough guys breaking down in tears with him, and he brings them into the light, and they surrender their hearts to this greater love, and we're all yearning for it. That's the reason we that's what drives addictions and is really the fundamental cause of stress. Is this inability to merge, to experience this great love that the soul is born to to bathe in and to express and to be absolutely one with. That's really what it's all about. And so, in order for us to move into that experience, it requires a shift in terms of who I believe I am. Because if I just believe I'm this physical material body, living in this physical material world, and all I need is physical material nourishment to sustain me, then I'm in for an extremely rude awakening sooner or later. And the big news is, and has been forever, is that that's not entirely the case, and that there is a very rich, infinite, unlimited, wonderful experience awaiting you within your own self. And all you need to do is, through deep relaxation, through an unwinding of your own emotional and psychological tension, and settling into your feelings, into your heart space, and with tenderness that already exists there. You don't have to add anything. You don't have to develop sensitivity. You already are sensitive, because that's what a spiritual being is. It is a feeling being of exquisite sensitivity. There's nothing more sensitive than the soul. You just have to become a soul-conscious individual and move out of that egocentric, body-conscious over-emphasis, and gently, softly, slowly but surely, constantly and consistently, with humility and integrity, move into your soul expression.
And that's what we really all have to start doing consciously, because as we move towards 2012, it's required that we step more fully into our hearts. Those that are sitting amidst negativity are going to experience more negativity, or those that are allowing themselves more positive feeling and compassion and love will start to experience more of that. There's more of an intensity that's going to start coming. Is that what you are finding as well?
Yeah, and I'd say, the very much we're experiencing the waves of that now. This year is an extremely powerful year. I don't know how you're experiencing it yourself there, my dear, but I'm experiencing an incredibly powerful year here. This is extremely significant, 2009, what's going on right now. So I'm not an advocate of waiting for December the 21st, 2012 for something amazing to happen. I'm very much a proponent of, hey, the eternal, infinite, unlimited experience of your own divinity is available to you in its fullness and entirety here and now, and always has been and always will be. Because what you're basically doing is merging with an experience that exists outside of space and time. It's not governed by cycles in any way, shape, or form. It's an eternal fact, an eternal truth, and this is the real spiritual underpinnings of all the the great scripture and story and mythology that have been singing out through antiquity. It's this experience with the living God that's always available and always will be in its entirety. And it's up to us as an individual to choose to have that experience. And I don't use the word you have to do this with people, but there's a choice. If you want the higher octave of human experience, if you want the real juice of life, if you want the real riches of life, then you have to walk this path. But you don't have to walk that path. You can choose to walk another path, and you can choose to prolong misery and suffering and fear and all of that stuff for as long as you like. And you're going to be catered for, and you're going to be able to experience a reality that absolutely, allows you that experience. And this is, the Buddhists, are very clear about this in their version of the innumerable hells. There's countless hells available. There's 7 billion people or whatever on the planet right now, and most of them in the modern Western world most of the time are experiencing some kind of hell. But there's the heaven on earth experience available as well, and that's becoming more and more and more accessible because more and more and more individuals are tuning into the eternal presence.
And you also speak about that power of choice, particularly in whether we decide to create and sustain harmony or whether we decide to create and sustain discord.
Yeah. And you need to develop the skills to make that choice, because if you've unconsciously and subconsciously chosen fear and guilt and shame and anxiety and struggle and all of that stuff, but you're not doing it consciously. You're unconsciously and subconsciously, you're magnetizing that experience to yourself because that's the content of your psyche.
And we are here with Nick Good with SuccessUltraNow.com. Are you creating and sustaining harmony, or are you creating and sustaining discord? We're going to come back and talk about 9 principles that can support you on this path, and a little bit more about Nick Good's story.
Yeah, very.
Awakened media for a transforming world. Seventh Wave Network.
Just what is Skills USA?
Skills USA specifically prepares you for the workforce.
Skills USA empowers students to connect with a network of people. Skills USA allows students to connect with business and industry, to manage their education, and to really get a feel of the real world.
Skills USA, champions at work.
Find out more on the web at skillsusa.org.
Experience higher love, an archangelic journey into ascended joy and authentic living.
Your hosts, Sri Ram Ka and Kira Ra, will assist you to open your heart, expand your love, and be ever present with true joy.
Your journey with Sri and Kira begins right here on the Seventh Wave Network with Higher Love, Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern.
Have you seen 1111? Do you wonder why certain numbers keep showing up in your life? 11, 111, 22, 33, 444. People all over the world are seeing 1111 and learning the language of universal communication. Subscribe to 1111 Magazine today. www.1111mag.com. 1111 Magazine is a bi-monthly print publication that offers a rich, multi-sensory experience. As you engage with experts and topics of consciousness, become enlightened, empowered, and energized, so you live a passionate and authentic life of conscious choices. 1111 Magazine, a daily staple for lifting the mindset, discovering the heart, and stepping into conscious living. 1111 Magazine. Order now at www.1111mag.com. 1111mag.com.
Listening on a higher dimension. Seventh Wave Network.
You are listening to 1111 Talk Radio. If you'd like to join today's discussion, please call in toll-free at 1-866-472-5795. Again, 1-866-472-5795. You may also send an email to info@believesc.com. Now back to 1111 Talk Radio with Simran Singh.
Nick Good travels the world spreading his wonderful wisdom, his teachings, his motivation and inspiration to many people. His business is Success Ultra Now, and you can reach him at successultranow.com. Tonight, if you'd like to learn how to be a superhero in an unstable economy, you can join for a special broadcast that is at 6 p.m. Pacific, and you can go to successultranow.com, ND webcast T09. You can go to that website and tune right into there. Nick Good talks about amazing grace and how it is necessary for us to stand ready to open the heart, to transform the soul, and to live in natural magic in what is shaping up to be the greatest drama of the ages. He says, join an ingenious alliance of beings ready, willing, and able to reinvigorate the human soul and save the planet at the last possible second. Take personal responsibility for your destiny and for the destiny of our home Earth. That's so important. We have to really consciously think about ourselves and finally consciously think about our Earth, Nick, because I think it's gone so long that we really took a lot for granted.
Yeah, don't we? Yeah, the ego is such a selfish entity with such a myopic perspective. You know, the perfect representation of the ego is Gollum in Lord of the Rings. Did you see that series?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, Gollum's the sad little creature that's living at the bottom of the swamp that's just, totally hypnotized by the ring and the power of the illusion, and we need to really get in touch with the grace, open our eyes, get in touch with nature, and fundamentally it's essential, just for electromagnetic energy flow, like this thing that, people are interested in becoming empowered and fully alive, You know, you can't do that if you're not walking barefoot on the earth. It's just not possible. You know, we need the earth's energy to interface with our biology in order for our biology to be functioning, you know, to optimal levels. It's just a simple scientific fact of life. And so that simple act of just wearing shoes, you know, almost all of the time, most people, you know, living in modern society do not walk barefoot on the earth. And it's absolutely essential to, in terms of, you know, wellness and aliveness. That single thing there is probably the most significant piece of health advice that you can give anyone, anywhere, anytime.
Well, that analogy really it's striking me as so powerful, because the whole difficulty of the human experience is our disconnectedness from our source, and the earth is part of that source, and we are consciously, by putting shoes on and not allowing ourselves to walk, we're disconnecting ourselves.
Yeah, and the nature, you know, Mother Earth, Mother Nature reflects our inner nature, and the wonder of nature, you know, is a pure reflection of the wonder of our own being. And this notion of the fall, you know, the fall of the world is in a fallen state. This is a popular motif that reappears through mythology and spiritual belief and story of indigenous culture, that there's been some kind of a fall. And if we look at nature and see you know, the way nature is, you know, like for instance here, we're in Hawaii here, and as beautiful and as amazing as it is, you know, we've got mosquitoes and spiky things that you can stand on, and spiders that'll bite you, and sharks that'll eat you, and all this stuff, you know. So, but even in all of its, you know, the poisons and dangers of and the wildness of nature, it's such a wonder. And Shakespeare says it very nicely, that one touch of nature and the whole world is kin. And it's so true, you know, that's where it is. And it's a reflection of our inner nature. And so we're looking at our inner nature when we're in nature. We're feeling our inner nature when we're in nature. And we need to get in touch with that inner nature through nature, with nature's help, if we're really interested in experiencing, you know, who we are.
One thing about the book Amazing Grace is you talk about raw magic, and I would consider nature very much raw magic.
Yeah.
And you go into the 9 principles of living in natural magic, and they're really powerful statements. I'd like for you to go through a few of these so that people can see, number one, how simple they are, but yet how powerful they are in helping us to live more consciously and more powerfully in our purpose.
9 principles of living in natural magic. Number 1 is grace, acknowledging the presence of grace, humbling yourself before the Almighty. There's a paradox that the spiritual warrior walks with in their life, and that is this sense of invincibility, unshakable invincibility and personal empowerment blended with absolute humility and tenderness and sensitivity and fragility, knowing that I alone am nothing, absolutely. But with this grace, I'm capable of anything and everything. Through Christ, I can do all things, says in Philippians, and that's what it is. It's entering into that relationship with grace through what's called the Holy Spirit, the whole Spirit, the unified field, the vibratory temperate in life that is perfect, whole, and complete, and that exists as a communication medium between source and creation, between creator and creation. That Holy Spirit, that medium of interface, through the feeling, through the breath, through absolute incredible sensitivity, through silence, through listening, through the yearning of the heart in love to make that contact. And that's the fundamental. Without grace, you're not going anywhere. Well, you are. Without grace, you're upgrading your ego. Without grace is the secret. Without grace is the secrets version of creating your reality, where it's an extension of what you've already got. It's that you want more of it and newer, better, faster, bigger, whatever. You know, it's the ego's trip.
And is that grace something that falls upon us, or do we have some responsibility of tapping into it?
We do have a responsibility, but, you know, it's like, again, it's extremely personal. Like the scripture, I'm the Reverend Dr. Nick Good, and so I've got the divinity and the metaphysics. So I've got a nice blend of mysticism, which is basically experience, practical experience through a natural experience, and then the divinity is really the scientific investigation of scripture and mythology and shamanic perspectives and what have you. And in the scripture, it says that grace is bestowed. It's a gift of God, and it's not earned through your works. But really and truly, there's a very potent equation that bestows grace, and that's love times faith.
And I want to thank you, Nick, for being on 1111 Talk Radio. I wish we had more time with you. The author of Amazing Grace, the principal of SuccessUltraNow.com. If you are looking for coaching, for motivation, or to read some amazing books, check out his website, SuccessUltraNow.com. My guest next week is Gloria Karpinski, and we're going to discuss her books, Where Two Worlds Touch and Barefoot on Holy Ground, and understand the mysticism and mystical Christianity. I look forward to talking to you next week.
Thank you for stepping into the doorway of conscious choice with 1111 Talk Radio. Please join host Simran Singh again next Thursday at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time for another enlightening edition here on the Seventh Wave Network. Remember, shift happens. Thanks again for listening to the preceding program, brought to you on the Seventh Wave Network. For more information about our network and to check out additional show hosts and topics of interest, please visit seventhwavenetwork.com. The Voice America Talk Radio Network is the worldwide leader in live Internet talk radio. Visit voiceamerica.com. The views and ideas expressed on the preceding program are strictly those of the host or guests and do not necessarily reflect the views and ideas held by the Voice America Talk Radio Network, its staff, and management.